Welcome to another Hollywood Times Live. Tonight, Kylo Laracca interviews Canadian film and television director, producer, and writer Patricia Chica.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tyler Laracca with the Hollywood Times. I'm here with Patricia Chica to talk about Montreal Girls and her filmmaking endeavors, her career, just the overall fantastic element she puts into her craft. Patricia, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
This is going to be a blast to talk to you because, of course, I did watch your newest film, loved it, reviewed it, and now I'm getting a chance to sit down with you. I did want to ask you before we start, when did your filmmaking career really start, or at least your interest in filmmaking? When did that begin for you?
It began when I was 4 years old, believe it or not. That's when I made my pre-decision to become a storyteller. And then I pursued my passion to be a storyteller through writing. I wrote a lot of poetry when I was a kid, and I started playing with my cousins and my friends to direct them. And I dressed them up, and we created those little plays at home. And I was the director of them. So it has always been with me, but it's really at age 16 that I made the decision to register to a film school. And that's when my filmmaking journey started.
Wow. And how was that sort of transition for you? Obviously, making things on your own is different. You know, you're having fun with family and friends, and then you're given this sort of structure within school. So what was that transition like for you as you began that journey?
You know, I just started working on every field of filmmaking that I could. So I did camera work, sound, editing. I even was in front of the camera for a few short films that we did at school. And then I realized that where my place really was as a director. And to be able to make those bold decisions on my own, and to be able to direct people and guide them through the process and inspire them to really surpass themselves. That's a very key element in my work. Is I'm a mentor. I love to teach. I love to transmit information, and to also guide my crew members, my actors, into becoming the best versions of themselves within the boundaries of that story we're telling. So, I've been growing. I'm a curious person, highly curious. So I'm always learning new things and going to workshops and going to different film markets to just be aware of what the trends are and what's next in cinema. So it's been a long journey of since I was 16. And really what I can tell you is that find a mentor when you're young. So I had a few teachers, a few people who guide me through my process, but it's really when I found my mentor, Byron A. Martin, about 12 years ago, that my career really started skyrocketing. It's an accelerator. So that will be my advice to anybody who wants to start and be a filmmaker or anything, to really find a mentor.
You know, that's a great piece of advice that I don't think a whole lot of young artists now going into school fully acknowledge or realize. It's really interesting finding a mentor. You don't always choose them. They just sort of happen. So how did you obtain that relationship with your mentor at that time? Was it, a shared perspective, or how did that begin for you?
My mentor, Byron A. Martin, he really took me under his wing. So he was very generous of his time. But there's it goes two-way. When you find a mentor, you also have to be an excellent mentee. You have to be available. You have to be of service and bring value to your mentor as well. It's not just take whatever the mentor gives you. It's a partnership. So I was very curious, very eager to learn, and to give my time as well to Byron, to collaborate with him on his projects. And that's really where the relationship really blossomed because I was learning from him. He was teaching me things. I was helping him with his project. I was learning along the way. And now Byron and I, we are producing partners. So we make films together, and I'm more experienced, more at a colleague level, not as a mentee level anymore. Although I keep learning from him all the time, but we are able to have real conversations and make decisions on the projects we're working on. So that really is important to find and to have those collaborators, because whoever you surround yourself with is going to become part of your journey, of your inner family of creations and co-creators, and really will elevate you or drag you down. So that's a big lesson I learned in my journey, is the people you collaborate with are so crucial to the process.
Well, and speaking of collaborators, we've obviously seen filmmakers taking, a crew they worked with on their student short films into, the features with big budgets that they're making now. Do you collaborate with quite a few crew members you've known for years? Do you rotate the team out? What is that sort of dynamic like for you?
Yes, when I find a team member that I really align with and that we expand together, we have fun also. Yeah, that's an element that's important to acknowledge. I just keep working with them all the time. And I can mention my DP, my director of photography, Alexandre Bussière. We started working in television together over 15 years ago, just as a group people. I was directing, he was doing camera for different documentary series. And eventually he transitioned into becoming a cinematographer, and I became a feature director. So we collaborated on Montreal Girls, and the visuals are incredible. They are so colorful and rich and saturated. Well, it comes from that trust you have with the people you work with.
Yeah, there is a very just vibrant look that your film has that always kept me. And unfortunately, I had to watch it on my laptop. I didn't have a chance to go somewhere and watch it on a big screen or a television. I could only imagine what that's like. But yeah, watching the film, each frame was so masterfully crafted and just looked so vibrant and I don't know, just really really deep. I have no other words to describe that. But I do want to get into the production of Montreal Girls and how
Yes.
that story came about. How did you obtain it? Was it just something that came out of talking to others at a diner? When did that moment of inception start for the production?
It started with a conversation that my dear friend Kamal John Iskender, my co-writer, and I had at the Oaxaca Film Fest in Mexico over a mezcal. So we were talking about life and whatever. And he asked me one question that triggered the whole project. He said, Patricia, you're from Montreal, so is it true that Montreal girls are these liberal entities, open-minded? They're so like almost like unattainable type of girls and along those lines. And I said, well, why don't you go to Montreal and find out for yourself? So we giggled, we laughed, and that's really where it started, with that idea. Who are the Montreal girls and the myth around the Montreal girls? And we created that story. And, the setting of the story, the backdrop, the Montreal underground scene, the subcultures really comes from my journey as a subculture photographer and filmmaker in the last decade. And all the stories, the characters, the ambience, the atmosphere, it all came through the screen in that script. So it's a very personal story.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask you, were there any characters or moments based off of, pieces of experience within your life?
Oh, I would say pretty much the whole film, but of course it has been dramatized. It has been put in another context. For example, the character of Rami, who is a Middle Eastern young boy, It's really my story, my coming of age story. Even though I'm not a Middle Eastern young man, I grew up in a very conservative family who didn't want me to become an artist. They wanted me to study medicine or law or business. I had great marks. And I could have gone that route, but I decided, no, I'm going to be an artist. This is what I meant to be. And I always believed in myself. Rami had a little bit of more doubts in his life, and it took the Montreal girls to really trigger him to make a different decision. So yes, elements of the film are very personal and anchored in my own reality and what I know. And also the identity of the Middle East culture comes from Kamal, my co-writer. So it's a blend of all those conversations and what we have been going through that really inspired the film.
Yeah, and it does have I mentioned it in my review for it, it does have this grit of, the late 80s, early 90s independent film, the early works of Linkletter and directors of that note. Did you have any inspiration as far as previous artists go when when it came to filming this?
Strangely enough, we didn't have any film references. But I believe because we grew up watching those movies, it inspired the tone and maybe the genre a little bit in the romance side and coming of age side. So it just came out that way. But it wasn't intentional. Now I see it because people who have seen the film so far and the film critics, they do mention that, but it wasn't really in my consciousness when I was making the film.
Oh, that's wonderful. I do want to talk about the casting process as well. It's daunting for not only the actors auditioning for it, I know that more than anybody, but also, the production side. So when it came to casting, especially for Rami, what were you looking for in every actor that was auditioning that had just what was the essence that you were trying to deliver there?
That's a very interesting story because it took me 4.5 years to find my Rami. And we had this wonderful actor that I love from Egypt, Ahmed Malek, who was attached since the beginning of the writing process. But for, tax credit reasons and because he's a non-Canadian actor and we had to stick with Canadian actors because of the structure we had, the financial structure, we had to let him go. And I had just 48 hours to find a new actor. And I started going into this casting call all across the country, in Canada. All the talent agencies were aware and submitting their clients. And we did self-tapes like really, really fast. We were receiving auditions. And I just couldn't find that young, very prudish and shy, timid boy, with a certain look that I was aiming for. So I was a little desperate and discouraged. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go online and just Google young Middle Eastern men in Montreal, whatever. And I found Hakim Brahimi on Instagram. And I thought, oh my God, he looks exactly like the character. Let me click. And I started researching and I found out that he had played a role in a movie, Antigone, that was very popular, but the movie hasn't been released yet. So I couldn't even know if he was a good actor. And he has a very small role where he doesn't really speak, but he dies very quickly. So we see him throughout the whole movie, but he's dead. So there's not much acting there. And he wasn't a trained actor. But anyway, we invited him to submit a self-tape and we told him that you have to make it quick because we're making decisions right now. And he sent us a very raw audition and he had natural charisma, like the character, but obviously he wasn't a trained actor. So I invited him to come to the audition room with me and the lead actress, Jasmine Apparent, who plays Desiree, the blonde girl, and just to try out a few scenes together. And I spent 90 minutes with him in that room. And I thought, oh my God, I have like a huge curve of training to do with this young man, because obviously he's not an actor. So I don't know, it hit me. Let me just sit him down, stop doing any trials of scenes, and just interview him, just have a conversation to find out what he's about. And it's the moment when I ask him to talk to me about his background, growing up in Algeria, that he started just crying, remembering his childhood there and what he missed about Algeria. And I just knew, okay, that's it. I know how to go get his emotions, and I can work with him. He's very raw, but I'm going to just train him. And what I told him next, I said, Hakim, I'm taking a huge risk casting you in my feature as the lead actor. Are you ready to commit for me to train you and to put the hours and getting ready for the role? And he said, yeah, I don't know. I have a full-time job right now. I'm going to university in engineering. I don't know if I could spend the time. And I said, well, if I can only cast you if you commit. So 2 days later, he called me and he said, okay, Patricia, I just quit my job. When do we start? So I knew I had a committed actor that I could work with, and we spent the whole year training him to get ready, because it was during the pandemic, so we had to stop. And I had all this time, to really spend the time with him and the actress Jasmine Apparent. So I'm an acting coach. I use energy work in my process. So I trained Hakim and Jasmina with Chi Energy. And there is a documentary that is available about the whole process. It's a 25-minute film. So if anybody wants to see it, just write me on Instagram or Facebook and I'll send you the link.
Wow, that is, I didn't know you were an acting coach. How long have you been doing that?
I've been coaching actors since I started as a director, but the method that I built with a curriculum, with a structure, and I do workshops and presentations. And now I started teaching it at the film school in Montreal. It's been for a little over 10 years, I would say. So,
wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I know I'm running short on time here, but I do want to ask, as we're covering Montreal Girls and we're talking about the production, I do want to talk about what's happening now, with the film. Obviously, it's coming out soon. I think June 2nd in theaters, right?
Yes, it's coming out June 2nd in the US in theaters, on June 27 in the US on VOD, and in Canada it's going to be released on June 9th. We also have a screening at the Marché du Film at the Cannes Film Festival on May 21st. So I'm very excited to be at the Palais presenting the film in front of the industry. And that's going to be a great way to make the film even more aware, to make it available for the world.
Oh, have you practiced your introduction speech before you present it?
I love to improvise. I trust myself. I set the intention. What is it, the message I want to transmit? And in the moment, it just comes out and it's authentic. So
it's the best way to go.
Yeah.
What is coming up next for you now that, Montreal Girls is coming up on release? Do you have another project in the works? What's on the agenda for the rest of 2023?
Absolutely. I have 3 other features in the works with different producers, and we're waiting on answers from the funders and which one will go next. So that's where I am at right now.
Well, we talked about the professional part of it. You want to talk about the personal part of it. You have all those projects you're, kind of waiting on, getting prepped for. What is keeping you satiated now that you're in between projects and things are being released? You're working on others in pre-production. Do you have any fun hobbies that keep you sort of grounded and relaxed outside of the industry?
Oh, yeah. It's so important for me what I do in the morning. My 3 first hours in the morning are mine. I don't take calls or meetings unless it's super, super important. Somebody in Europe who needs to different time zones. But I have my routine, meditation, exercise at the gym with my personal trainer 5 times a week, and also journaling and just setting my intentions of where actually I design my day and I design my week and the year, constantly evolving where I am at and where I am going. So that mindfulness is so important to me, and it keeps me grounded. It keeps me inspired. It keeps me feeling positive and optimistic, and also trusting the process, because there are so many challenges and hurdles and obstacles and rejections in our industry, and just take them with grace and gratitude, because they are meant to just guiding me through the process. If it's not a match right now, it doesn't mean it cannot be later, but there's something I need to work on. And that's really the mindset. Those 3-4 hours, non-negotiable. My assistant, they know, don't book anything. I'm here to just, and it's an accelerator, because when you're clear with your intentions, when you know where you're going, and you have that Zen attitude, you're calm and you're not desperate or anxious about it, it really helps move forward faster within the process of filmmaking.
Wow. Well, Patricia, I do want to say, as we wrap up, thank you so much for your time and delivering. It's lunchtime where you're at right now, so sacrificing some part of your lunch break to sit down and talk to me. I can't wait to check out your feature films, and Montreal Girls was fantastic. I hope I can watch it again. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today. This was a blast. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to join you today, Tyler, because I adored your review. You really got it. You really nailed it. Like, when I was reading, I was very moved. And thank you so much for supporting independent filmmakers. And go watch the film in theaters the first weekend. It's important for us to keep it out there in theaters, because the story will inspire and empower anyone who has always doubt about their beliefs, and somebody who wants to feel inspired to make the right choices in their life. This film is for you.
Suggest you subscribe to this channel for the next Hollywood Times Live.